The house burned down my first year of high school, so I was 13 or 14 in 1997, something like that. Like the week before, we had this like all this electrical work done. My dad's like this environmentalist, pseudo environmentalist guy, and he was like trying to save all this electricity. So we had like this new like breaker system like, put in or something like that, and the electrician had been there a week before and was like almost done, but not quite done. And so we went out to dinner that night, and um, we got back and we lived on a cul-de-sac. And when we got back, there was a fire truck like blocking the cul-de-sac. And we're like, oh shit! Um, and we saw smoke, and you could see the smoke on the way back. But there's a refinery like over the hill from our house, so there's always smoke coming from there. So we thought it was that. And we got close to our house, and we're like, oh my god, there's a house on fire! Like that's crazy. And then we got closer and closer. We're like, oh my god, there's a house on fire on our street, and we couldn't pull into our cul-de-sac because there was a fire truck blocking the street. So we didn't know it was our house. We didn't know it was our house until we were like 100 yards away. And I guess it was an electrical deal. I don't really remember. I lived with, at the time, me, my sister, my mom, my dad, and our uncle who lived in the garage, Uncle Brian. But he didn't go to dinner with us. He was never home. So we walked up, and I just remember my mom and my sister. My mom, I looked back at my mom when I saw the fire. I remember seeing the fire and just staring at it and being like hypnotized for a little while. And then I turned back to look at my mom just to see what she thought, and her hands were like over her face and she was crying. And my sister looked at me and she didn't know what to do, so she started crying. I was like, my dad had already like run up to like the fire department already and the cops. I was like talking to them. And my mom said something about our neighbor's house catching on fire or something like that. She didn't. She was hoping that our neighbor's house didn't catch on fire. And like looking back now, like it could have been so bad. It could have like, because our houses were so. That's what people would do. They would move in, build a house that was way too big for the lot, so all the houses were like smashed together. And I remember like how close like we probably came to burning down other people's houses because there's a house like, right in back of us too. And I remember thinking that my PlayStation was probably a plastic mountain on the ground, plastic little puddle in my bedroom, and my new Weezer CD was probably melted. Uh, I don't know. My sister was crying and my mom was crying. My dad was like totally fine. He just like went up and like so nonchalant and talked to the cops and the firefighters. We lived in Manhattan Beach, California, and like I said, we lived on a cul-de-sac, and um, there were like a ton of kids that lived on the street with us, and we were right next to an elementary school and a high school, so it was like prime real estate. And all the houses around us on my street were like huge, except for ours, because like ever since we moved in there, I remember growing up every year there was somebody new that moved onto the street, knocked the house down and rebuilt it, because like that's what Manhattan Beach became at the time. It was like the place to move and raise your family for upper middle class white folk. And we had bought that house. My mom had bought the house with her ex-husband in like 1971 or something like that. So they paid like 50 grand for it, and it was worth like 800. when it burnt down. Well, we moved in with my Aunt Sue and her husband Richard. They had just gotten married. Um, and Richard owned a house in Redondo. It was his parents' house, and it was like a 4-bedroom house. So we all got our own bedroom, and we were there for the majority of my freshman year in high school. Actually, no, it was my whole freshman year of high school, and then like a third the way through my sophomore year of high school until the new house was built. And yeah, I was with my Aunt Sue. She was my mom's youngest sister, and she was like, her and my sister were like best friends. My sister was like 5 years younger than she was. Sounds really crazy. No, it felt really weird because we didn't have furniture for like what felt like forever. And then the furniture that we did get was like the insurance company reimbursed us for everything, and they ended up suing this this electrician, but he was like this environmental electrician that my dad hired, and like he came highly recommended, and he ended up going out of business because of this. So did it feel like home? No, it didn't feel like home. No, the house that they built was a lot bigger, and my dad put a bunch of money into it. And like I said, all the furniture was brand new. We had never had brand new furniture before. All the furniture we would ever get, we'd have like, I remember having like 2 couches when I was a kid, but it was always like, we'd get like my grandpa's couch, my grandpa's old couch when he was done with it. So it was the first time we ever had like new furniture. And it was, I don't know, it felt like you couldn't, it was like the living room became, instead of like the room where we like hung out and ate dinner, it became like the room you couldn't go in. Like all my best friends' houses who lived around me, and all their parents were stinking rich, and all their houses were rebuilt. It felt like we became one of them, kind of. It felt like I was perpetually in my best friend's house, something like that. And I couldn't go in his mother's white living room.